In this video, I want to go over a couple different problems with traveling around the country with an unregistered gun in the house. One, you have teenagers and children. As a 16-year-old, of course I looked at it. Once, when I had other people who were teenagers look at it before me, we had other people who were, I don't know, 17, who already chose to look at it. We had babysitters that looked at it. We had my mother acting crazy, and I was scared with the behavior she was acting. I thought that one day she might do something to me and then leave the gun and call it suicide or something. The way my mother was, she could do something like that. She was making up so many stories, like when I jumped in a pool, she called me suicidal. When I was bumping in the furniture, she called me suicidal. There were so many times where it was either a neurological disorder, or I was just jumping into a pool, or I was sucking on my skin at age 7, where my mother would make up these self harming fantasies, and I couldn't figure out why she was doing it during my childhood. So it scared me, like maybe she was planning on trying to frame me for suicide someday or something. So I was really scared of having that gun in the house. But one thing I do want to talk about is, as a teenager, oh yeah, I took a look at it. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like I walked around goddamn in the backyard with a gun trying to play with it, trying to shoot stuff. It's not like I, went to grab ammo and started shooting stuff in the backyard with it, or it's not like I put it in my pants and walked down the street, or even tried. No, I never even, no, fuck that. I just looked at it and said, oh, that's a gun. Huh. How do you take the clip out? Huh. Don't they have like a pullback thingy going? Huh. This is weird. This has like a thing in the handle where you squeeze. And why were people saying revolver? I don't understand. Oh, 'cause they didn't want me to really know what it looks like in case I told my father. Smart. That's why that exchange student told me it was a revolver. Just in case I snitched to my father, I would sound stupid. And that way he wouldn't believe me. Smart. Smart guy. I was only like 12 years old, 13. We had it's bad. I shouldn't be going through my parents' drawers. But then again, my mother shouldn't be stealing my belongings. She shouldn't be stealing swimming medals. She shouldn't be slipping me pills that shouldn't be given to me that aren't my prescriptions. She shouldn't be making up stories about me. She shouldn't be blaming her alcohol use on me. She shouldn't be stealing my belongings. She shouldn't be trying to keep a mirror onto my room and then seeing shadow people at night while I'm asleep. Because I'm talking in my sleep, she comes screaming on the second floor that there must be people visiting me in my room. What's so ridiculous if you knew the floor plan of that house. Nobody's ever going past my mother's room on a second floor, right up the top of a flight of stairs. You would hear the person walking up and down the stairs. And if you invited a friend over who just biked over or just drove over and they just snuck through the house in the dark and just went up a flight of stairs, they don't know the house. There's no way they're quiet. So there's no fucking way I had any company over. My mother is seeing shadow people the year before she dies. But instead, I get belittled. I get woken up in the middle of the night from a sound sleep before I'm supposed to be going to work or getting stuff done the next day. And this was a common occurrence where I would try to do something good or just try to sleep or do nothing, and I would have to go through this shit. And so, yeah, this had a common occurrence to happening. And this is where my brother doesn't understand. They're the laziest people. My family have had everything handed to them. My brother had everything handed to him. If it wasn't for that, he would have nothing. He'd be flipping burgers at McDonald's. When it was time for my brother to flip burgers at McDonald's, he couldn't do it for long. No, he started breaking the rule right in the beginning because he didn't want to work there. He knew the number one rule at McDonald's is you cannot bring the food home. You have to pay for it. You get a discount, but you can't take any of the bringbacks home. Now, you can ask and try to do it, and you'll get away with it. But after a while, if you continue bringing the food home, you will get fired. But my brother knew this and did it on purpose because he knew his wife would support him. Now, did anybody ever say anything to him when this was going on? When my brother got a DUI? Did anybody ever get into my sister's business? Did my mother or father ever question them and get into their private business? Or were they smart enough to keep secrets? Something I'm not willing to do. See, at a young age, I was told to be 100% honest. But then I would be 100% honest and my mother and father would add fantasies in. Like if I told my mother that, or father first, that I was doing a science experiment where I brought a match to slug slime. My mother would turn that into I have serial killer ideations, I have homicidal ideations, I should be drugged, and I should get naked in front of interns who are interning to be nurse assistants, but they're only like 26, 30 years old, late at night or in the day when I'm visiting my parents. When I come back, I gotta get naked. They gotta check my bum for knives, matches, and needles and all that good stuff. How old am I? 13 years old. I did a science experiment and I'm learning the scientific method and I'm trying to come up with a fire extinguisher liquid because I saw something on TV that said slugs were born out of fire pits, or at least that's what the Romans believed in the 1600s. It's not true, but it was a whole Discovery Channel thing about how Romans didn't understand how the life cycle of eels or slugs and other creatures, and they showed how slugs and eels were attracted to near the beach or in the dirt the fire, and they would come out of the ashes in the morning, and so they thought that they were born out of fire. And there's a lot of papers written in Roman about this, how they really believed that these things were born out of ashes of fireplaces. Like somehow fire would bring life to creatures. And I figured that all I got out of that was slugs must be fireproof if they're around that close to fire. And if they're fireproof, it must be the slime. And if a slug is fireproof and it must be the slime, couldn't you harvest the slime and save a lot of people's lives? Put it on a jacket, brush it on, make it into a paint, turn it into a fire extinguisher, turn it into a jacket. You could even make a slug farm and make jackets out of the skin. Who knows? And the possibilities are endless as my 13-year-old mind sees this. So I go, how do I test this discovery where I could make millions and help out all of society? Okay, I gotta find slug slime and I gotta put a match to it. I try it. It bubbles. It gets hot. No good. At that point, I decide I should tell my father because this experiment required fire. So I tell my father, he goes outside and he checks a rock. Now, it's not like my father was just going to check this random rock. It's out of his way. There's nothing for no yard work over there. It's not like you could see it from mowing the lawn. It's not like there's any hedges over there. So if my father goes, no, my son isn't honest. My son would never tell me the truth about something like that. If my father says something like that, he's just lying to you. Because that rock is not something he went to check on like a regular basis. It's not like there was yard work over there. The reason why my father checked that rock over there is because I told him what I did. So he went outside to look at the rock where the slug was, where I told my father I did the experiment, and then he went in and told my mother. And then my mother said it means that I'm homicidal and that I should be drugged and I should be medicated. Instead of trying to tell me, no, 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 you need to go and get an adult to do these science experiments. We'll get you a Bunsen burner and somebody can teach you some chemistry instead. Instead of trying to get me a chemistry set and maybe having me use Bunsen burners or maybe having me figure out how to grow caterpillars or maybe how to have silkworms and discovering how silk can be turned into cloth from a worm, or instead of trying to like get that curiosity going and turning your child into an entrepreneur or into the genius he is by giving him the skills he needs in life to do great things. My father decides to do the opposite, to try to hinder those skills, to try to cut off education. Instead of me being in school, I'm going to be injected with drugs twice in the same hour until I'm drooling all day and shitting in my pants in a chair in a state hospital called Lowell Treatment Center because my mother has fantasies about a slug. She thinks I'm going around hurting animals because she has fantasies. It's slime. It's a pile of slime. It's slime. It's not like I'm ripping the slug in half or going, ha 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 ha, oh, look at that slug in pain. Yes, he has a burn, motherfucker, burn. No, I'm not some fucking crazy guy. I'm trying to do a science experiment because I want to have inventions. Everybody knew I was trying to mix things together. Like in my closet, I put water in an empty coffee can and put it in the back of my closet to see what would happen. That's it. Tap water in an empty coffee can. You know what happens? It turns black in the coffee after a couple weeks. So even one ground at the bottom is enough. Apparently there was one coffee ground left that I missed in the coffee can because I didn't wash out the can. It was just one of my father's old coffee cans. I turned it upside down, slapped it, put some water in it, put the cover on, put it in the back. After a couple weeks it turned black. But then I forgot about it. I started checking it a couple times, like once a week. But then after a month or two, I forgot about it. But then my nephew came over and asked me if I was shitting in a can or pissing in a can or something. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? There's nothing in that closet. That's my closet. That's not wood. That's not a wooden box that has like storage or some plywood. And I'm not fucking a little kid and I wouldn't be doing that and that. What are you talking? Oh, a coffee can. Yeah, that's just coffee. That's black coffee. But then he opens it and it smells like sewage. Why? Because the coffee went bad. Of course it did. Started growing bacteria and smelling really bad from that bacteria. And of course, because it's now so long, it got really bad. It was bad. When I dumped it out, it was black liquid, but boy, did it stink. It was just looked like the stinkiest coffee you ever had. But if you didn't know the process in which that was made, how it went from tap water, sitting. But these science experiments are things I did just to discover things I didn't know. Like I had no idea how water could change from so little grounds over long periods of time. That's when I realized the longer you soak something, the more it soaks up over a certain period of time. As well as I learned that even drinks rot. Even basic drinks like tea, coffee, and water will rot with the slightest stuff in it. I also discovered this again on accident with a bottle of water with a little backwash in it in a program. It smelled like the same sewage. I had a bottle of water. I had some backwash in it. It was under the bed. After about a month or two, I pulled it back out and said, oh, there's my water. I put it upstairs on the top bunk. I went to drink it. Oh my God, it smelled awful. I didn't even take a sip as soon as I got it to my nose. It smelled like the exact sewage. So I was always doing these little experiments when I was about 11 to 13 years old. But by the time I was 14, my mother was just doing so many crazy things to me that I was afraid to even be a little bit experimental or try to even do a little bit of experiments or even be a little bit creative. But my favorite thing had to be being scientific, like more like chemistry, like mixing stuff together or building something new. Taking a bunch of something else and making something new. Like taking chlorite and sodium and creating salt. To me, that's amazing. or taking a bunch of different items, like a bunch of metal pipes, glass pipes, and a bunch of random items, and then making a distilling set or some cool device like one of those steam engines, like taking a copper ball and a copper tubes, or a glass ball and some copper tubes and a Bunsen burner and some water, and all of a sudden you have a steam engine that spins and charges your phone. That type of stuff is amazing to me. Or taking an old vape battery you find on the ground and collecting them and making one large car battery out of it that can jump your car, putting it in the back and making a car jump starter out of old disposed vape batteries, and then you go home and recharge this jumper. Or you create a taser or a lighter with these old vape batteries. Turning something new, making something new, or creating new chemicals, or when I'm saying chemicals, I mean more things that help society forward, like Benadryl, being able to create Benadryl, or how in chemistry you can take 100 aspirin and turn that into Tylenol, or how certain compounds or chemicals can be extracted by plants, like for instance salicylic acid, what gets turned into aspirin. So how you can take white willow bark like the Indians used to do, boil it down in your kitchen, scoop off the salicylic acid, crystallize that. Well, you don't even need a chemistry set to do that. Now you have salicylic acid. But then you take that and you add it to a chemistry set, and then you turn that into what? Aspirin. Stuff like that I find amazing. And a lot of it's very simple. Like there's another one, how to make sodium pentothal, but the backwards version so it's legal in the United States. That is one of the easiest things I've ever seen made. If I remember right, that was the one that was super easy. I could make sodium pentothal. It's so easy. It really is. But this is another form. It's just sodium pentothal with a backwards molecule. But no matter what it is, they're all just really interesting, and I'm really good at those type of things. It really sticks in my mind, the molecules, like how I can imagine stuff. Like I can see how things will fit together before I even put my hands on them. I'm able to imagine each brick. Like if I was playing with Legos, I can imagine all the bricks that I have in front of me and how they're going to go together in my mind before I even touch the bricks. And then I touch the bricks and just make it match what my head says. And I do the same thing today when on walks. I've sold trash before, repurposed into devices or into things that people don't even know used to be trash. I recycle like that all the time. I'm able to find things and then I'm able to upsell them, and people don't even realize it used to be trash. Works all the time too. Depends on how good a job I do or how much tools or things I have at my disposal. Like I could use a hot glue gun and a welding gun as well. I'm a little short. I used to have a welding gun, but my last one burnt out and doesn't have replaceable tips and is thrown away, gone. I don't have a heat wrap gun or any heat gun. I've been using a hair dryer for heat, what is really terrible for the purposes. I mean, there's just so much I could have that is very helpful, but that's only in that. I mean, when I get into chemistry, that I need a couple lessons. I want some practice in a garage. There's a lot more. I need a fume hood, of course. That's the first thing I'm going to need is a fucking fume hood. And of course, all these things require me getting my health care and then getting my income and having a stable living quarters. What requires me working with my family on what happened to me so the doctors don't go in circles for the next 20 years with me like they are right now. But instead, they want me to die. So I get to find a hole to die in. I will use a shelter, but this will get in the way, and then I'll probably be thrown out. They'll say it's because I'm stubborn, but really it's because I have a disability and my legs aren't working at times. And I tell them that I can't move my legs at times, and then they just send me on an ambulance. But then obviously my legs can move sometimes too if you just give me a minute, like I try to tell them, but they want me to move right then, right there sometimes, and that's just the problem. But most of the time this doesn't happen. You usually don't see this unless it's cold, there's flashing lights, there's weird noises, or first thing in the morning.